So you guys have had a lot of practice with scatter plots this week. So we're just going to put it all together today in this lesson, and you'll have your Big Ideas Online assignment as well. So here's just a quick little review of a scatter plot. There's a graph that shows a relationship between two sets of data. You've had a lot of work with that this week. They're graphed as ordered pairs in a coordinate plane. So this first example we have, we're going to just interpret these points on this scatter plot. So it says the scatter plot on the left shows the amounts of fat in grams, the number of calories in 12 restaurant sandwiches. So these dots that you see on the graph, those represent different sandwiches. It compares their fat content with their corresponding calorie content. So looking at part A, how many calories are in the sandwich that contains 17 grams of fat? This is where we go to the fat axis. At 17, that would be between 15 and 20. So here we go up, and there's the sandwich that corresponds with that. And if we go over to the calories axis, it looks as though there are 400 calories in that sandwich. How many grams of fat are in the sandwich that contains 600 calories? So on the calories axis, we go to 600 and over and find the sandwich that corresponds to that. Down to the fat axis, this sounds funny, 30 grams of fat in the 600 calorie sandwich. Let's see what tends to happen to the number of calories as the number of fat grams increases. So as this number gets bigger, this number does too. So that tells us there's a positive trend going up this way. So what tends to happen to the number of calories? They also increase. So more fat, more calories, and more flavor. Haha. Here's an on your own question. So if a sandwich has 650 calories, that is 650 on the calories axis. Based on the scatter plot in example 1, this one, how many grams of fat would you expect the sandwich to have? So I go over, it doesn't line up exactly, which I think is kind of the point, right? So looks to me like it would fit kind of here. And so if I go, oops, I'll go straighter down, I don't know, maybe 37 grams of fat for a 650 calorie sandwich. Maybe closer to 35. It's going to be approximate. So here is another example of what it looks like to have a positive correlation that's going up, and it's linear because it goes in the trend of a line. This is a negative linear relationship because it's going downwards. It's still in a line pattern, as opposed to this guy. See how it's curved? There's still a relationship with those points, but it doesn't have a line pattern, so we say that's non-linear. You guys have seen this a lot so far, this idea of no correlation or no relationship. So it says the points show no pattern. Identifying relationships. Describe the relationship between the data. Identify any outliers, gaps, or clusters. So outlier, this is a point that looks like it doesn't really fit on the graph. It lies outside, so it's an outlier. Here's one. There's an outlier. I suppose we should first identify the relationship in the data. So this one looks positive linear. It's a positive linear relationship. It looks like it goes in a line. There is that outlier. If I were to write this as an ordered pair, it looks like 70 and maybe 70 on the x-axis and what? 2,250 on the y-axis, the outlier. Gaps or clusters are exactly what they sound like. Clusters are a bunch of points that are clustered together. So there's a cluster there. And a gap would be if there is a space, like a significant space between any of these points. So here's a space here. So we'll say a gap at around on the x-axis at about 30. Ooh, I said gap. I meant to say cluster. So cluster around x equals 30. That looks crazy. And a gap between I would say there's a gap between 30 and 40, right here. There's a gap between x equals 30 to 40, and that's where y is between 500 and 1500. So from here to here, 500 to 1500. Okay, now in part B, we're just going to identify the relationship of these. None, no relationship. So we say no relationship. Those don't have a positive trend, nor do they have a negative trend. So on this activity today, your assignment today, you're going to actually have to graph your first scatter plot. You guys have been playing around with them a lot. But I just don't think this is going to be hugely brand new to you. They lay out, like we've done in class, they lay out what your x-axis is supposed to be. This one is going to be study time in minutes. The corresponding y-axis is going to be your test score. So we'll call this the score. And the hardest part about this, I think, is trying to figure out the scale on our graph. So our smallest number has to be a 20 on the x-axis, and the biggest one has to go up to 120. And so if I counted these by, let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. So I can count these by tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. That's that red line. Boy, oh boy. Let me try this again. I'm going to skip. I'm going to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, just to give me more space. 80, 90, 100. What did I do? I believe that's 100. This one's 120 right here. 120. Okay. Now I need to do the same on the y-axis. So it looks like my smallest. Well, my smallest, if I'm counting scores on a test, my smallest is going to be 0, and I have to go all the way up to 97. So we'll say 100. And I think, let's see, I think that same counting scale should work. So we'll count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Great. Now that I think is the hardest part. Now we're just going to put points on this graph based on what is given to us in the table. So I have to do 30, 80. So 30, 80 is here. 20, 74. So I go over to 20 and up to 74-ish. Yeah. 60. That is I study for an hour. I get a 92 on my test. So that's here. I'm going to go 90, 97, so over to 90, 97, about up here. 45, 85, so there's 45, 85. I'm starting to see a positive linear trend here. So 10 and 62, that is, you study for 10 minutes. Come on now. And you get a 62 on the test. That's a D, boys and girls. We'll go 30 minutes, get an 83. So this person studied for 30 minutes, got an 83. 75, and got a 90. I think you guys see where I'm going with this, but I'm going to go ahead and finish it out anyway. 120 minutes and got a 70. Ouch. Studied the longest, did not get the highest score. Sometimes it works out that way. Did I ever tell you about the time I studied for 4 days straight and got a D on a test? 80, 91. All right, great. Let's describe the relationship. It looks to me like this is a positive linear relationship. Positive, and it's linear. Here's an outlier. That is that data point that doesn't quite fit. It's something that you wouldn't expect to happen. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't really see any gaps or clusters that are noticeable, unless you want to call this a cluster. No significant gaps. Okay, hopefully you guys found this helpful. Good luck on your assignment today.